You're live.
All right, it's 7:30. Call the September 28th, 2020 business meeting of the Grosse Township Board of Trustees to order. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To
to the republic which it
stands,
stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all. Okay, and I actually do have a standby gavel. Okay, where the entire board is present, we'll conduct business as usual, as scheduled, as open the meeting at 7:30. Begin with additions and deletions to tonight's agenda. And I will offer to delete action item number 6, the Macomb Street easement agreement between Township and the Nature and Land Conservancy.
Support.
Okay, moved by Supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budney. Any comments, questions on taking that off tonight's schedule? Okay, if none offered, those in favor of deleting action item number 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will be deleted. And the next was to delete consent agenda item number 4, the easement approval for DTE.
Support.
Okay, moved by Supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budney. Any discussion on, we don't have any paperwork on, any discussion on that deletion? If none offered, those in favor of deleting consent agenda item number 4, the easement with DTE, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None offered. Any other additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
Mr. Supervisor, I'm requesting that action item number 1 be removed until the entire board has had a chance to sit down and talk about this and discuss it, understand it completely.
Okay, we have a motion. Hearing no second, that will proceed no further. I do, just as a point of clarification on action item number 6, the appointment of the deputy treasurer. It's a recognition of the deputy treasurer. The appointment is solely the purview of the treasurer. So we're not appointing, but we're recognizing the appointment. And I'll say more about that when we get to that on tonight's agenda. But with that, those in favor of approving tonight's consent or tonight's agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that will the agenda stands as amended. We'll step into presentations now, and we'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Brent Hardin.
Good evening. Good evening, board. Good evening, public. I'm going to go into a screen share here. Let me know if you see this, please, anybody.
I see a puppy.
Okay. So I'm going to start off with a PowerPoint presentation of the request for a full service dog to be complementing the police department. Then I'd be requesting that the Township Board approve and purchase and allow the implementation of an additional canine unit, and I'll get more further into that as we go in the discussion. So I'm just going to cover a little briefly over the objectives and commitment of our department, a little bit on the history of our current canine that we have, do an overview over forfeiture, describe some of the policies and benefits of this canine. I'm going to talk to you about the capabilities of this dog and what we would put it to use for, and some additional training just so you're aware of how this goes about. I'm going to give you some ideas, some costs, care and maintenance of the animal. I'm going to show you briefly just a little idea of adjacent jurisdictions on what they've used their dogs for, retirement and replacement decisions, and then the support for you to move forward if you would. So just, I want you to understand what our objectives and commitments are in the community, that we want to ensure the safety of persons within Grosse Township. We want to protect their property, whether public or private. We want to maintain order and public peace. We want to apprehend criminals. We want to have a community spirit with adherence to the law. And we want to ideally have the community feel safe and secure in their homes. So with that, our officer that's currently deployed is Officer Ferguson. He's with the DEA Detroit. He's in his 9th year of deployment. He'll be eligible for retirement in 2022. The dog service life are usually between 8 to 10 years, so John's kind of pushing the envelope with his animal. When him and his dog do come to an earned retirement age, John will take custody of the dog with him, and it'll be a house pet after that. And so we want them to retire together, but the purpose of this is to ask for a full service dog to replace Officer Ferguson's what's called a single purpose dog. So right now, Officer Ferguson only has a dog that does drug searches. What we're looking for a dog is what they call full service. He would be able to do building searches. He would be able to do tracking. He would be able to do multiple things, which I'll get more into in depth shortly. So that's what's going on with Officer Ferguson. Right now, he's maintaining a liaison with many federal agencies that he's involved with, from Border Patrol, FAA, DEA, any alphabet agency that you want to choose from, he has contact with during his career. It contributes significantly by having him into our forfeiture fund balance, which I'll get into more detail later. And he provides a good asset to our department. Ideally, we don't use him as a asset for Grosse much, because his dog is more just drug oriented. Our dog would have a complement of being able to search for individuals that are lost. I can speak to just about 3 different incidences or cases this year that we've had lost elderly individuals, or we've had missing individuals. Although we can use another asset from another department, it's usually kind of hard to find whether they're working, whether they're available. For us to have an animal that's available 24 hours a day, that we can recall him to our community if he's deployed at the airport. Plus, the officers live within a 5 to 10 minute range from here, so they would be able to respond to our Grosse calls in that capacity. Some of the benefits that the dog being in the DEA has done: it's allowed us to purchase patrol vehicles. We've had remote cameras at all of the bridges that it has complemented us at our command center and the police dispatch to have access to. So there are cameras at both bridges, Grosse Parkway and Meridian, and at Macomb and Meridian. So we have multiple cameras that are out, and a couple others. The forfeiture funds allow us to have that infrastructure to maintain idea of what's going on through the community. It is also paid for our license plate readers at the bridges. It allows us to purchase ammunition supplies and range equipment that we utilize to maintain currency with MCOLs, which is a state standard for law enforcement. And then we also have a lot of other infrastructure and technology projects that we have purchased with the forfeiture funds, just to give you an overview. So I wanted you to understand what this dog can do is what's called a full service dog. Our biggest priority will be community relations, to be able to interact with our school children. I don't want people to fear the police. I want them to welcome the police and to be able to call us with any needs that anybody would ever have. There seems to be a divisiveness in the community right now with the police, so we need every asset we can obtain to bring that connectivity with the community. I want to stress upon that we have building searches that a dog can do. Their olfactory senses, their vision, and their keen hearing can go into a building, and instead of 2 officers just aimlessly walking in through a building, a dog can pretty much, with all of its senses, go right to the individual that may be in a building. So if we're doing building searches, the onus is that it's a lot safer for the officer to send the dog in. We can also do open area searches where we look for lost elderly. As I've noted earlier, we've had a couple of incidents where we could have utilized that in the community. Evidence searches or article recovery, tracking and trailing. Those are pretty much, if you were chasing a bad guy and he dropped some type of article, whether it be gun or if he stole money or something like that, and we catch him down the road, we can actually backtrack where he was running from and try and go recover whatever item that we're looking for. The narcotics goes without saying. They would be trained in a specific drug identification and be able to pinpoint certain narcotics. The other thing is just having a backup with cuts or reductions in staffing and stuff like that. Having a canine, for the cost that the canine is, it's really an enhancement to the police department, because you're actually getting a second officer at a discounted rate. So we strongly encourage that the dog is a great benefit for officer safety and for the community safety in looking for the bad guys. And then just a few more. Crowd control. It's against our policy to utilize these canines for crowd control, and we would not be using it for that purpose. But there are other jurisdictions that do have their dogs trained for that purpose. And the last thing would be pursuit and apprehension of vehicle or foot pursuits. We don't encounter them very much on Grosse, but we do encounter them. So, you know, we're not an island in amongst ourselves. We do have incidences just like the major metropolitan areas. The benefits. Dog is very highly cost effective, and like I had mentioned earlier, it has great keen olfactory, hearing, and vision senses. It also provides a psychological deterrent in the presence of a conflict. I don't want people to view the dog as being an aggressive animal or there's something to be feared. What it is, though, is that if the dog is there at an individual that's having a conflict with a police department or with an officer, the dog is kind of like makes people think twice whether or not they're going to take an aggressive move towards law enforcement or if they're going to do something that they may regret. So the dog is a good psychological deterrent, and just kind of having a second set of eyes. And, you know, our bad guys kind of look for options to get away from us or anything like that. Well, the dog probably is not going to, they're going to think twice if they're going to make that determination. I'll cover some costs. What we're looking at is called a Dutch Shepherd. The dog is actually coming from Europe. Our handler or our source is in Pennsylvania. He would be getting the dog actually handpicked. He'd be flying over there. One of the vendors that we would like to use is out of Pennsylvania. I recently visited his facilities. They are AAA rated. The facility, he actually goes out and buys 50 dogs a month at the cost of about $500,000 per month. So he sources a very extensive fleet for all of the alphabet agencies, Defense Intelligence Services, and all of the different units of the federal government. The reason the Dutch Shepherd, they have a lot of different traits that we're after. They put them through a tracking test, a gunfire test, a detection test for sociability, and a play test. And the other one is for the ability to work and courage. So that's why we source a dog from overseas. They have some certain traits that we're looking for, and these dogs are trained and groomed for that purpose. So as you can see, the dog is about $8,500. The officer's training and equipment is another $4,500. Accessories come to another $5,300. That's for essentially the vehicle and equipment to outfit the vehicle. The monthly training, once we do the outlay of the $4,500, there's no monthly reoccurring training. That's going to be covered through Chase Canine, who's a unit of training that does a program up in Oakland County or Macomb County. That's who we would be going through. And then we cooperatively work with the U.S. Border Patrol, and they would be doing our reoccurring training also on a monthly basis. As you can see, the medical, the food, professional membership fees, this is the capital outlay cost in the beginning to get things off the ground. The initial training would be 5 weeks with the Chase Canine. We have a mandatory maintenance training. What that means is that right now, Officer Ferguson, he has to commit to 8 hours of training every 2 weeks for a minimum of 16 hours a month. So he usually does that on duty, but in order for him to maintain certification, he has to do this mandatory maintenance. I just recently this week got access to all of his training records, which are up to date. And so, you know, we're in compliance with that. And then there are numerous associations that certify dogs. Here's the crux that I want you to understand. We can get a police canine in Georgia for $2,000, and they'll train the guy for a week, and you have a police canine. And there are actual police departments that actually do this. I strongly discourage against this because they need at least about 5 weeks of training for all of the courses and all of the items that the dog's going to be expected to do. Officer Ferguson's been with the United States Police Canine Association. That is the one that we wish to continue to be with, and they have the standards that we believe would be necessary for Grosse. Just to highlight the care and maintenance of what the handler would be trying to provide every year. There is a thing under the FLSA that requires, and this is where the continuing pricing of annual costs comes to the police department. is that when the handler has the dog at home, they're required for 30 minutes a day of considered maintenance or care and upkeep of the dog every week of the, let me restart that. For 7 days a week, for 30 minutes a day, that handler has to be compensated for his care while he's off duty. So that essentially comes down to about 3.5 or 4 hours a week, which we have to pay in overtime to that handler to cover those expenses. So as we do that during the course of the year, it's around $10,000 to $11,000 a year that we're paying in that fee. So all the other fees are just the initial start fees, but this would be the annual fee that we would have. So you're looking at about $11,000 to $12,000 in overtime to cover that FLSA compensation coverage, and then some food and veterinarian bills. So we're just under about 12 to 13,000 max, about 12,500 a reoccurring cost. This is just in 2016. I was able to get the stats on Trenton and Riverview just to give you a comparison of what activities were happening in those true jurisdictions. This isn't all inclusive, but I just wanted you to get an idea. And some of these wouldn't apply to us because we're not as active as some of those jurisdictions are with, major arteries like Fort Street and stuff. But public demonstrations, narcotic contacts, building searches, evidence searches. And then I just want to point out, a lot of people think of a dog of the aggressiveness of apprehensions. They had actual 4 apprehensions, but the dog did no bite because the individual gave up before they had police contact. So the dog has tremendous purpose, and it would be a tremendous asset to the police department. Okay, I don't want to get you lost in the weeds, so I'll do the best trying to explain this to you from myself. So collectively, for the last several years, we used to have treasury funds, which are state funds, and then we used to have federal funds coming through the feds. So when an officer would make an arrest, years ago, we used to do federal forfeiture funds. Let me rephrase that, forfeiture funds under state. Governor Whitmer, back in 2019, signed a bill to limit asset forfeiture cases under the state forfeiture ruling. And essentially, I'll just read you this one little paragraph. So the law prohibits assets taken by a suspect for drug crimes being forfeited unless the defendant is convicted of a value of more than $50,000, excluding the value of contraband. Essentially what that means is that we've now taken money under the state, and we've now started taking them under federal forfeiture funding. What that has done was allow us to continue to seek forfeiture funds that the state would no longer take. But as you can see in this example, on this slide here, our state forfeiture funds, we used to get a significant amount up to 2016. And after they started changing the law, those treasury funds under the state were no longer taking in. So now with the federal forfeiture funds, now all the funding is taken under federal forfeiture, and we've done away with taking the cases under state. As you can see, this is on a fiscal year period. I made a mistake with the packets that the Township Board received on their expenses that they show for forfeiture funds received. It's showing a fiscal year. That should have been by calendar year. So just correct that on your handouts if you would, please. But this is showing what the fiscal year proceeds were that we took under the federal forfeiture funds. So as you can see, it's a sizable amount of money. Right now, my last check under the federal asset forfeiture website, there's about $66,500,000 to be apportioned that's still going through the litigation and that. And some of that stuff may be dropped in the court cases, but that will be appropriated to the amount of departments that are going to have that value apportioned of each case that they have. So I'll give you an idea. Right now, we're probably looking about $1 million, $1.2 million. That's just a rough estimate, but that's what we're looking at in the future as it would be coming in. The benefit of John having a canine. So there's essentially between 4 or 5 different agencies that may be on a case, sometimes 3. The benefit of having the canine unit is that whenever we do the forfeiture apportionment, the dog is actually considered a half an officer. So we benefit from that extra percentage. Just because it's hard to do this math. Essentially, I just try to break it down easy for you that the feds will break it down in hours. So as you can see, whenever they allot the money, it's apportioned by this algorithm to where we end up being more of a benefactor for the amount of money there. So currently, John has a dog that's 9 years of service. You can see what the standard is. And our intention is to backfill his position whenever he leaves. We're kind of trying to just get ahead of the game instead of John retiring and then we have to go through the training and then have the lag and then actually have the new replacement for the DEA be trained in the new position that he's in at the DEA and be concurrently trained with a dog. We're trying to get this process done a little bit of a lead time before that happens. In summary, the dog will help prevent crime and apprehending dangerous criminals. It's invaluable in search and rescue, public relations benefit, assisting in building searches and seizing illegal narcotics. I just briefly want to go over one recent thing that happened with John. There was an illegal dispensary that was in the city of Detroit in the last few months. They would not come into compliance with any of the state and federal regulations. They were just running an ad hoc dispensary for marijuana. The officers raided that location. They took in from a local bank proceeds of $504,000. They seized a residence that had a value of $300,000. They took a 2020 Rolls Royce for $350,000, $40,000 to $50,000 in cash, 5 guns, and 2 arrests. So as you can see, that's one of the activities that this dog is doing. And as you can see, you know, you're having an impact on illegal activity with the marijuana. There was a legal avenue that these individuals could have taken and they chose not to do so and went against what they should have been doing. John is also involved at the airport. They are affiliated with looking for packages through the postal system and UPS, DHL. Recently, there was an interception of $23,000, which was being shipped through UPS. Another $50,000 was intercepted in another package. And 2 additional ones, $80,000 and $32,000 in 2 other transfers to where people are just shipping cash. What happens is that the drugs come north from the south and then the money gets shipped south. And so John does a fine job in intercepting those packages and identifying those that are being through the courier services. So I wanted you to be aware of that. So we are confident that the DEA assignment is going to be in the future. And, you know, we're being proactive in getting this dog on the road and getting him trained. One of the things that we're asking just in the interim is that we're going to assign this dog to road patrol which would be conceivably about a year and a half before he would be assigned to the new DEA opening once John retires. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope you will allow us to move forward in this. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Any questions for Deputy Chief Hardin?
It's Jim Budney. Brent, I just want to understand this. So if we get him on and get him trained, will he be doing, will this new dog be working for DEA and generating funds as well as John's dog until he retires?
He won't be, the new dog that we're asking for tonight would be assigned to our road patrol and complement our road patrol with the guy that we have envisioned to be going in the DEA. Okay. John would stay out in the DEA autonomously until he's ready to retire. We would have the other dog here on patrol on Grosse. Once John retires, the new dog would seamlessly move into that new position.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Loftus?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, Deputy Chief, does that mean that once the officer moves to the DEA, that he and the dog then no longer work on Grosse after that period?
That is correct. However, I would caveat that by saying We would be able to have him recalled here at any time that we would need him. Obviously, if he's busy at the airport, we wouldn't be able to recall him. But, if he's home, most of our officers that would be in the selection process live within 5-10 minutes from here. So he won't be on patrol, but he would be, available at our beck and call, if you will.
Okay.
But I would argue that once this dog would make that move, if I would still be around, I would be asking you for another dog to be on the road patrol. But that's wishful Christmas wish list thinking, but I'm good with the one right now.
Depends on how well they work out. I have a couple more questions I wanted to ask.
Please.
In your packet to us, you pointed out that some agencies have difficulty calculating the 3.5 hours a week for the Fair Labor Standards Act. Where is the problem in that? We do half-hour increments in payroll all the time. Is there another reason that they add on that half hour a week?
No, that was just certain jurisdictions have a hard time doing the 0.5 calculation. We would do the accurate 3.5 calculation within our accounting here, but some people just do the round off, but go ahead.
Well, and then the FLSA, that payment, that is also then covered through the forfeiture funds, or does that come out of the police budget?
That would come out of forfeiture funds also.
Okay.
There would be no incurred cost to the police department out of our annual budget.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And I have one more question. Some agencies obviously also have animals that are there as kind of support animals during a emergency or disaster or crisis. But I expect maybe they get a different kind of training. But is this something that this animal could do as well for us, or would that be asking too much?
The support animals have a separate training. I do know that for a fact. Whether or not that we could utilize this dog as a support animal also, that would be beyond my pay grade at this point. I'd have to ask around, but that's an interesting question, and I'd be curious to know the answer myself.
Okay. Well, thank you. I have no other questions.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board for Deputy Chief Hardin? Okay, with none offered, that'll conclude the presentation. Thanks, Deputy Chief.
Thank you.
And we'll be talking to you again in a few minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, at this time, we'll open up to brief public comment. Raise your hands for the host, Mr. Friel, and 3 minutes on tonight's agenda items.
See, I don't know how to raise my hand.
Well, Brian, are you selected?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Mike Jurecki, go ahead. I can see you're raising your hand.
Okay.
It's the normal raise your hand. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Just raise it. So I question the board's rationale for offering Township Manager Ream a transition contract. The Township Manager is highly compensated for his position compared to other Township Managers across the state, and it is highly unlikely he will choose to leave his position in the final 11 months before he is eligible for full retirement at 30 years of service. Excluding the Township Manager from the calculation, average time in position for Township Department heads is just over 6 years. This amount of time in positions for department heads is more than triple the time of any of the several operations I have run over my 30 years in management. With this level of experience, Grosse is in good shape to absorb the loss of a Township Manager if, for whatever reason, he left before an orderly transition could be carried out. Moreover, at this time on average for department heads does not include their other related experience that would also help in a transition. In particular, one individual who served in a nearby community with essentially the same responsibilities of our Township Manager and is known to have done a good job and is qualified to fill the role, at least in an interim basis. It is my understanding also that the Township Manager has a history opposed to awarding management level employee contracts. I am concerned that the Township Board establishing new precedent it cannot afford, but will negatively affect the morale of employees who are not offered the same benefit. Typically, retention bonuses and transition-related contracts are reserved for highly performing, valuable employees whose services are critical in a time of a risky transition. I believe that this is not the current position of the township and won't be for the near future. So in summary, I don't see a high risk of the township manager departing before his desired retirement date. If the township manager was to depart immediately or before a smooth transition could be accomplished, I believe for all the reasons mentioned, the township is in very good shape to absorb the loss. So if you agree with my analysis, then one must ask themselves the question, is the real reason for this offer of a contract from the current board not based on practical need, but rather to extend their control beyond their elected time in office with the intent to encumber the new board arriving in November from invoking the positive changes they campaigned on and the community of Grosse overwhelmingly supported with their votes at the last election? Unfortunately, the answer seems to be, to me, the latter, or to state it again, to encumber the new board. This, in my humble opinion, is wrong for the community of Grosse, and any board members voting for a contract at a minimum that takes a manager from being a terminate at will employee to a terminate for cause employee is not looking out for the long-term best interest of the township and its taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jurecki. Other comments on tonight's agenda items?
Debbie York, I saw you put your hand up earlier.
Mrs. York.
Thank you, Mr. Loftus. Deb York, 8003 Bellevue Road. First, I want to thank Supervisor Loftus and Clerk O'Connor for their time and consideration in our recent communications and their promise to help provide answers to my many questions as I try to understand how things work here. I very much appreciate your help. My comment tonight relates to action item number 7, approval of sale of tax-reverted township property to a township resident. As I commented during the September 14th board meeting, I would once again respectfully request that this board make every effort to help clarify for the community the policies and procedures that are followed whenever there is consideration given to the sale of township-owned property. I would like to better understand, and I believe others would too. I look forward to learning more this evening when action item number 7 is presented, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. York. Next, Brian, who else?
Yep, Joe Porcarelli.
You're on. Mr. Porcarelli?
Yep, Joe, you got to unmute yourself.
Mr. Friel, sorry about that.
There you go. You got it.
Thank you very much. I fully agree with Mr. Jurecki's.
Shocker.
I fully agree with everything that Mr. Jurecki said on these philosophical and ethical issue of this type contract. And the problem that I had is I actually could not believe that a contract, a agreement, whatever, can fall into the next board. Now, there's certain statutory issues like a union contract, and we all understand that it's signed and it goes to a certain date. So I went to 2 experts in the labor and contract law, and I got the exact same answers from both of them. And what they state is the author of this contract, and I'm going to call it a contract, not an agreement, they fell short of a just cause agreement. They fell short of an employment agreement, and they also included it to be a transition agreement. What was stated, it was commingled into something that is not valid. And here was his points. The gentleman's points was there is a separate law that states what a township manager will do and not do in the state of Michigan, that the governing general law township, as you know, Grosse is. And that is that the township manager serves at the pleasure of the current board, not the past board, the current board. And also, there is case law that shows this from a controlling court in our area that confirms this. So what this means is you can't violate state law with a contract. And if you give them this, you're actually violating state law. But what the one expert told me was that this 5-page agreement that we have right here is not even valid. It's been already fought in court. It's not valid. and it's not valid for those reasons. And it's not a just cause contract. I just have a quick question. Is this a just cause contract that you believe it is? Anybody from the township board, are you able to answer that real quick? No, okay, that's all right. So my point is that, you know, this new board that's coming in is a group of us, and all we ask is from the township manager and then the managers of the departments is to do your job with honesty, integrity, true transparency, and to perform above satisfactory levels. Now, I don't think that's really too much to ask. It's absolutely not too much to ask. And if you don't believe in those core values, then of course there's going to be a problem. But the whole point of the matter is, I wish you would at least maybe sought a real expert in this area, because it absolutely appears that the next township board, you've given us no choice if you pass this tonight. The next township board is going to look into this, and it's much easier to adjust something, fight something, litigate. Point of the matter is, if you're going to pass this tonight, you do what you do anyway. We're two experts in this area telling me that this isn't a valid contract. It violates state law, and it's already been litigated. So thank you very much for your time, Brian, for calling on me, and sorry about the beginning stuff there, slowing you down.
Mr. Porcarelli, who's next? Brian.
I don't unmute myself. I don't have anyone with their hand raised. Is there anyone else that has a public comment?
Let's move on to, with that, put on to tonight's consent agenda. Mr. Treasurer. Well, I thought we had these things wired.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Thanks, Ted.
Okay. Consent agenda is 20-032, which includes the Board of Trustees 14th of September minutes. It includes a check register dated through September 25th, 2020. It contains the Community Recreation Commission recommendation, which would be, I'm sorry, the Community Recreation Commission resignation of one of its members, and the Halloween trick-or-treat hours, which you will probably go into at in your report.
Will do. Okay, I will second Treasurer Van Os's motion on the consent agenda. Is there any comment from the board on tonight's consent agenda? Ms. O'Connor. Got on mute. There.
I unmuted. I just wanted to thank Greg Meyering for his service to the community and appreciate all the many hours and efforts that he made on the behalf of our community. Thank you, Greg.
Okay. Thanks, Rita. Any other comments on tonight's consent agenda? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that stands approved. Let's move on to action items. Certainly, this is going to be the most interesting, and I will introduce it. Recommend the Grosse Township Board of Trustees approve a transition agreement with Township Manager Dale Ream. History, purpose, and explanation, this should be telling. Based on uncertainties in township government and threats made during election campaigns, the township manager is requesting his current at-will employment be protected via agreement till his retirement date, 1 September 2021.
Support.
Oh, I'm sorry, I need a second.
Support.
Okay, thank you, Jim. The agreement, all the agreement does is maintains the status quo for both the manager, the current manager, and for the township. It gives him no additional protection, no additional compensation, no bonuses, none of those things that were measured or mentioned. It protects the township from an abrupt departure. We had our human resource expert draft or assistant drafting the agreement. And I don't think he would have brought it forward to us if we were not confident this was the right way to go. Again, it's to protect the employee. And we did hear threats during the campaign that if I get elected, I'm firing Dale. I don't know if he intended to back those up or carry them out. but certainly in the last few months of employment of a career employee, that generates a lot of legal problems. So this, again, was to protect the manager and also to protect the township. Other comments from the board?
Mr. Supervisor, if I may.
Yes.
If you bear with me, I have 4 or 5 questions I'd like to ask, and have, I guess, either you or Thomas Sorty answer. Tom, as the drafter or helping to draft this document, you would know the best. But I'm hoping that these questions answer a lot of questions for the rest of the board, as well as for the residents watching this meeting. So if I may, bear with me here. First question, and this would be for I guess for Tom. Can the said employee that this agreement is for be let go for failing or refusing to do his required duties under the agreement? Tom, you're muted.
So this isn't an employment agreement. His employment situation would be handled by his rights as a public employee, as an employee.
All right, so this does not protect him from what would regularly happen. In other words, if he wasn't doing his job, he could still be let go.
Again, if you're talking about this agreement, or are you talking about his employment situation?
What I'm asking is, does this agreement supersede what would regularly happen and protect him over and above what he normally would have?
I wouldn't recommend an agreement that supersedes federal constitutional law, which is what would protect his position as a public employee.
Okay.
So the answer is no, this does not supersede his federally protected constitutional rights.
Okay, and as a follow-up to that question, if he were to be let go because of failing to do his job or refusing to do his job, he would not be, there's nothing in this agreement that gives him more than what he would receive under regular circumstances. He doesn't get any increased benefits or anything.
Again, he has rights under this contract, which are separate from his employment agreement. This is for the additional services of 1, staying, and 2, cooperating with the township above and beyond his current responsibilities.
Okay. Under this agreement specifically, does he get any extra pay or benefits that he doesn't have now?
Again, this is not an employment agreement, so there are no pay or benefits. He has contractual rights.
And that's the point. That's the point. He doesn't get anything extra.
Well, he gets rights under the contract, and the township also gets rights under the contract.
Yeah.
But his employment situation, his employment compensation does not change.
Okay. All right. And Brian, you've kind of answered this, but I'm going to ask it again. Why are we doing this?
Again, since I brought up originally, there were threats made during the campaign. Dale is within his last year of employment. He has banks built up. He's eligible for retirement on the 1st of September. He plans to retire on the 1st of September. And this is to protect, I guess, those threats from being carried out. It would put the township in another legal quagmire that would be embarrassing, expensive, something I've done my best to avoid for the last 12 years. And first of all, a career employee deserves better than that. So this protects the status quo for both the township and for the employee through his, up to his retirement date, his announced retirement date.
All right.
That answer your question, Jim? Is that?
Yes, yeah, that's fine. Here's a key question. With this agreement, does the township benefit under this agreement that it wouldn't have the benefit had we not, if we don't have this agreement? Is there a benefit to the township?
Absolutely, there has to be a valid and binding contract.
Well, what is it? Explain to the people what
The
it
additional
is.
benefit?
The benefit that we're getting with this that we wouldn't have without it.
He's going to provide additional services beyond what his obligations are.
And people might not know or understand, if without this agreement, basically we wait till an employee says, I'm going to retire. He may give us 2 weeks notice. He may give us a week notice. He may walk out the day
Correct.
he wants to retire. And then we have to start the process at that point of finding a replacement. And we don't have anybody to give the institutional, that's there to give institutional knowledge. With this agreement, if I understand it correctly, we're doing it so that we can hire somebody, have him here to mentor them. That's the benefit to us, is to have Dale pass on that institutional knowledge to the new manager before he leaves. Am I correct in that? I mean, anybody, tell me if I'm wrong.
That's why it's important to me.
Okay.
I'll be supervisor then, but I think, well, you will be supervisor then, Jim, most likely. So it should be important to you.
Yeah. One last question, and then I'll let you know. Well, I guess two actually, but one last question. I do have a problem, and I mentioned it to both Tom and to Brian today. In Exhibit A, which is a list of compensation and benefits, there are a couple items that are being fenced by this that couldn't be touched, which would be could have a negative impact on our next budget, in that we could not do anything with them in case we had to reduce things. And I've been told, and I'm worried about this because I've been told we're going to have a revenue shortfall, as everyone can imagine. We don't know what it's going to be or how great. And I am concerned that I couldn't treat everybody fairly across the board if we had to do something. And I'm asking that those items be unfenced, if you will, for budget purposes, should it need to be done.
Which I know you
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have it right here. The salary and the additional compensation.
Okay, the additional compensation going forth, and this is just quick math, from the 1st of April, when your new budget will take effect through his retirement 1 September, that's $3,000.
Correct.
A COLA, I mean, the whole,
COLA is something that the new board will discuss or look at or not look at, whatever they decide. What I'm concerned with, depending on how the shortfall is, and I hate to say this because I know everybody's going to go up in arms, and I'm not saying this is going to be done, but being new to the position, being the first budget, doing the first budget, I would like all the tools in front of me that I could handle, and this fences off touching his salary at all. And I would just like it opened up to be possibly adjusted if it's for a budget matter,
Are you,
on a budget basis.
are you talking about adjusting one employee's?
No,
one
I'm
employee's salary?
talking just the opposite. If I have to adjust employees' salaries, I don't want to be doing everybody but one. And that's the position he's with. And I'll tell you, in looking at those two, by fencing those off, I feel that we're putting him in a special category over and above the other employees. And I'm concerned about that.
Okay, you've got, there's only one group whose salaries you can adjust.
Yep.
That's
It's the non-union people.
right, which is what, 10, 11 people out of our 50. And, you know, talk with a labor attorney. If you're going to sequester one group and force them to take pay cuts without, especially with 2 million in the bank, without touching the other employees, it's, I mean, you can reduce or not give increases, but if you're going to cut, it's, you're getting into a real slippery slope.
Well, I appreciate that, Brian. I would like to have the availability to look at all the things available to us to come up, if we have to come up, especially with a large shortfall. And I'd rather spread it around a little here and a little there rather than have to go after, you know, something with one big chunk. I don't know. I have no idea what the budget's going to look like, what we're going to have to do. So I'm not saying any of this is going to happen. I just would like it available, and I also have a question of setting one employee out as and not the same as the rest of the employees. That's my comment on that. And then one last thing, if anybody on the board wants to take this, or Thomas Sorty, Joe Porcarelli's comments regarding illegal contract and everything.
I think you should stop right there, Jim.
Well,
I think you should stop right there.
Tom?
Yes, stop right there. You don't need to name names about anybody, about anything.
Okay,
Stop right there.
Stop. Mr. Budney has the floor.
And Brian, please stop me if I'm out of line. What I'm concerned with, Joe brought up some good points. I wanted some information on that. Are they valid or not? That's my question, Tom. Are those valid questions, or are they off base? I would certainly like to know it, because if we're voting on something and it's illegal, I want to know that.
Well, I unfortunately didn't hear a reference to the law. He said that there's case law. I'm not aware of the case. This has been out on the agenda for some time, and you guys all know, like you and I discussed this morning, if there were discussions with experts, I'd be happy to talk with everyone about what's there. We talked about honesty and transparency. To just blanket make comments, I don't find it be a good practice to respond to that it's illegal. I'm not familiar with the law that he referenced that lays out the responsibilities of a township manager under state law. I didn't hear him reference that. I'm not familiar with the case law that he referenced. I don't know who these legal experts are that he spoke with. I'd be happy to talk with anybody about anything. If there's something that's incorrect in there, the last thing I want to do is put the township in harm's way. And certainly Chief Porcarelli has my telephone number from working before. So I guess if he would have called me or we could have talked about this, I would have been happy to talk about it. But I'm not aware of it being illegal in any way. In fact, I know it goes on a regular basis, these types of agreements. It is not an employment agreement. It's a contractual obligation on behalf of two parties. So if I had some specifics, I'd be happy to respond to the specifics.
Would it be safe to say that if this were passed tonight, that we would still be able to look into those if there is, to see if there is something, if we can be given the information?
If somebody wants to give me information that this is illegal or invalid, I'll immediately report to the board and discuss if there was in fact an error made, including whether or not it was caused by me.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
That was planned.
If there's something else, I tried to come up with questions I thought other people would be interested in.
No, it was they were valid points. Other comments from the board?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Malvesto.
Jim, first, I thought you were going in a different direction when you brought out a name, so I apologize for that. I thought you were going in a completely different direction. First off, to my knowledge, there has never been a contract like this in the history of Grosse, the township, for an employee. Am I correct?
My corporate knowledge only goes back 12 years. Dale, you've been here for 30. What's your, has this ever happened?
That's okay. I didn't expect an answer anyways. In the past, we had an employee who came before the, who requested of the township board some consideration that if they had taken a promotion, they wanted the ability, if it didn't work out, they wanted the ability to go back to where they came from. And this board told them that we were not going to provide any special agreement that would allow them to do that.
Right.
This is much the same, to me, this is much the same thing. This is a very slippery slope. Mr. Risordi just made that statement. It's of a slippery slope. When we start this for one employee, who's next? Who's next? Who's going to feel threatened, and they're going to want their position cemented in place? Again, it's just inappropriate to do this. There has been no board discussion on this. 7 members that sit on this board have not sat down and discussed this in any way, shape, or form. We don't know as a board what the purpose of this is. We don't know as a board the legalities of everything in this contract, but yet we're going to vote on something that we know nothing about.
Okay, this has been a topic of conversation.
No. This has not been a board discussion.
2 weeks now, Tom. Come on.
There has not been a discussion amongst this board about this topic. Now, you may have had conversations in a back room behind a closed door, but 7 members of this current board have not discussed this. So don't change that up. Don't change that. We talk about transparency. Mr. Assorti talked about, just spoke about transparency. There is no transparency on this. I'll go back to what I just said. This board has not discussed this in any way, shape, or form. We have no idea whether it's a valid request or not. And as far as somebody during a campaign, there are always statements made during political campaigns that you can take personal. But that has nothing to do with this board. This board has not threatened any employee in their services. This is not our place. It is not the place of this current board to pass an agreement like this. This should go on to the board that's going to be coming in place. We have not done anything. It's not our place to build up a safety wall for every employee in the township. You got very defensive when Mr. Budney suggested that he may be looking for pay cuts for salary employees. And you were very cautious. You were very concerned that you cautioned him not to go in that direction.
Who is the you you're talking about?
Mr. Loftus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you did. When Jim brought up talking about salaries and of having to cut, you just cautioned him not to go in that direction. Be very careful about what you do. By passing this agreement tonight, we are not, this current board is going to be gone. There'll be a fresh board in place. You could be putting them in a very tenuous position. This should have been taken off the agenda, and it should have been discussed by 7 members of this board, not by individuals behind closed doors. And that's all that's taken place.
Anything else? I mean, this has been a topic of discussion for what, 4 weeks now.
When was that?
Now I'm talking.
Brian, when did the discussion take place? Tell me. Please tell me we had a meeting where 7 of us sat together and talked about it.
You could have called anybody at any time. We don't have sit-down discussions on most of the topics we bring up.
No, not when we're going to approve the purchase of a dog. No, but something like this that affects our township government should have been discussed by the board with our labor attorney, our expert labor attorney. So we all would have had the same information at the same time, not the diluted, trumped up information that was going to be passed on by individual conversation. There is no transparency here. This is all for
Any other comment? Enough.
Yeah, enough. Thank you.
Enough.
You don't like it? That's a big deal, Brian.
Any other comments? Any other cogent comments from the board? We understand you're opposed to it, Mr. Malvesto. We understand. The fact that you have not called, have not asked for questions. Mr. Budney had a list of questions. He brought them up. I think they were answered to his satisfaction. You could have done the same thing at any time.
This information was only made available to us at the end of last week.
At
the end of last week. Don't go any farther, Brian.
All right, this discussion's over. Any other questions, comments from the board? Madam Clerk, Ms. O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I just want to say I've had no backroom discussions with anybody. I read the information and formed my own opinions. And I would just like to go on record as saying I would like to think that the incoming board will honor and value the work of a manager that we've had at the township for over 20 years, and that they will help provide for a, shall we call it, peaceful transition when it's time for him to retire, and that they'll live up to their word that we can do this without a contract or an agreement.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Other questions, comments from the board? All right, with none offered, this is obviously it's contentious. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. And the motion, once again, approve a transition agreement, which we all have in front of us, with Township Manager Dale Ream. Again, roll call vote. Mr. Treasurer.
Yes.
Mr. Budney. Mr. Budney, unmute. Jim.
Sorry. Unfortunately, because of my budget concerns, I'm going to say no.
Mr. Nelson.
Jim, you're going to need to unmute also. I'm not sure Jim's with us. I mean, he's on the screen, but I'm not sure if he's actually with us or not.
Mr. Bletcher.
Aye.
Mr. Malvesto, I'm pretty sure I can put you down for a nay.
Put me down for a no. At least you're counting me this time.
Supervisor, aye. And Madam Clerk.
I'm going to go nay.
Well, we got to wait for Mr. Nelson then, because we're 3-3.
Let me see if I can.
Is he in the building?
He's not in the building tonight.
Where are you, Jim?
It looks like, you know,
He looks
lined
like
up,
he's,
but
yeah, like he's in there.
Can someone call him?
Mr. Friel's working on that now.
Okay, thank you.
We'll write to voicemail. Oh, he's unmuted.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes, sir.
we're voting on the action item 1. I hope you were following the discussion.
I was.
So we're in a roll call vote. You're the last vote. How vote ye?
I vote yes.
Okay, for the record, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 aye and 3 nay. At last, it carries, but I'm sure we'll have Mr. Assorti review to see if there are any illegalities, anything that has to be amended. Am I safe in that assessment, Mr. Assorti?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to hear from Chief Porcarelli of all the information he presented tonight.
Okay, so if there's anything that's improper, we can either start over or nullify it. Thank you, Mr. Assorti. And actually, it's probably not going to change. Nothing's going to change. Action item number 2. RFPs for, okay, Mr. Nelson, will you introduce, it's Rex, so. You still with us?
Sam,
Action item number 2.
I would like to discuss the proposal to go out for RFPs with the board.
Well, the motion is to allow the Community Recreation Commission to seek RFPs for property, i.e. currently occupied by Smokies, the restaurant. So
I would say no.
all right, let's, the motion, are you not going to introduce the motion?
Correct.
Well, in that case, it will be, if the liaison's not going to introduce the motion, does anyone else, any other member of the board care to introduce the motion? Hey, with none offered, that'll be tabled until a decision is made.
Perfect.
That is the first in my 12 years. But okay, but fine, if that's the intent. All right, now some exciting stuff. The 2020 winter tax levy, that will be yours truly. The motion is resolved by the Grosse Township Board of Trustees that to be levied on the taxable value of said township for the year 2020 winter billing, a tax of 9.4847 mils on the taxable value thereof, said value being $641,334,851.
Support.
Okay, move by the supervisor, seconded by treasurer. Background, and we do this every year, twice a year. We have to levy for both summer and winter taxes. This is for the winter taxes, which will be due on February 14th of 2021. And the millage rate is calculated using, unfortunately, the millage reduction factor from the Headley Amendment, the Headley millage reduction factor, because our property values are increasing greater than the rate of inflation due to uncappings. So since we're doing such a good job in promoting our community, that we have to ratchet back the levies, which is why we are in a budget problem. Anyway, going forth, uncappings cause the taxable values to increase in most cases greater than the rate of inflation, hence the Headley rollbacks. Should the fire equipment millage renewal, road maintenance renewal, or the recreation millage renewal pass in November 3rd, 2020 general election, a revised L4029, which is our levy, must be submitted to Wayne County prior to the preparation of the 2020 winter tax roll. And a board meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 9th. At that time, we'll know whether those levies or those voter approved millages have passed. Questions, comments from the board? This isn't exciting stuff, folks. With none offered, those in.
Oh, no, I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
No, sorry. I'm just saying if the millages do not pass, then will that be a reduction in the levy? Or are the levies included in this, just to be clear?
If the millages don't pass, they drop off.
They drop off, but they're included in what we have in front of us, just so everyone's clear.
Let me,
Yes.
Yes.
Fire operating. No, they should not be. They will be included if they pass. Right now, we have to wait. Ann Darzniak?
Yep, they're included.
Those millages have expired. And we have
Correct.
to renew them to collect them.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, we can't renew before it's expired because it becomes 2 millages.
Right, so what they're on right now, it will stay as is unless they don't pass, and they'll fall off the form.
Okay, so it was a little confusing. So they are included now. If the millage does not pass, it falls off.
Yes. Oh, no, she doesn't
No,
have them included. No.
It's
so
the
they're
other way
not
around.
It's the
Yep.
other way around. Okay,
Yeah,
Yep.
millages are not
does-
included in the current levy. If they pass, they will be added
So
on.
added.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sorry if I made it muddier.
Oh, it's a valid question. Okay, with that, any other questions? Sorry. All right, with that, resolved by the Grosse Township, well, I guess, okay, the resolution actually says, resolved by the Grosse Township Board of Trustees that to be levied on the taxable value of said township for the year 2020, a winter billing for township purposes, a tax of 10.9137 mils on the taxable value of said value being $641,334,851 dollars. And yeah.
And if the motion passes tonight, both Supervisor Loftus and I will be signing that, right?
Correct.
the
That
morning.
is also correct.
Ryan, could you repeat the bill, the tax, how many mills again?
I'm seeing the discrepancy here for the first time. And why do we have a different one on the resolution than on the motion? I'm going with the resolution. 9 point. Yeah, it should be the 9 point. She's got the total mills of 9.4847. If you look on the resolution page.
That's the resolution.
Which is the same, which is not in the text of the resolution, but it's in the, I'll make it the text of the motion. And it'll be, because it is the addendum of all the various millages on the winter tax bill. So with that, let me correct it again. Resolved by the Grosse Township Board of Trustees to be levied on the taxable property of said township for the year 2020, a winter billing for township purposes, a tax of 9.4847 mils on the taxable value thereof, said value being $641,334,851. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. That motion carries, and thanks. We'll be able to send that up to Lansing. Let's see. Action item number 4. Then I'll ask Trustee Bletcher to introduce that from what we learned from Deputy Chief Hardin. Mr. Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I move to approve after the fine PowerPoint presentation by Deputy Chief to move forward with the purchase of full-service department canine to begin training for both the handler and the canine.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Bletcher, seconded by Trustee Budney. Well, we know what the history, purpose, and explanation is. We just briefed on that.
I think we could forego that, Mr. Supervisor.
I think so. Any further questions, comments from the board? Okay, Deputy Chief, thanks for the presentation. I think you cleared up pretty much everything we were concerned with and more.
Thank you.
No questions from the board. I'll go right to the vote.
Real quick
I'm sorry,
suggestion.
Yeah.
Sorry. Deputy Chief, when we adopt the dog in question, will you bring him to the township board so that we can all meet him and have him perhaps do a little public presentation with the new dog?
We would be delighted. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
Excellent. Great. That is an excellent idea. Thank you. Any other comments? Any other very nice ideas? All right. With that, move that the Grosse Township Board approve of the purchase of a full-service department canine to begin training for both the handler and the canine. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None offered. That motion carries. Again, thank you, Deputy Chief. Thank you, Board.
Thank you so much for your support.
This is, okay, moving on to Deputy Treasurer. Treasurer Van Oss. Introduce.
Yeah, Brian, you just,
Treasurer.
do you want me to just put this in my report, or do you want to do it now?
It's on as a recognition. So if you would just, actually, we can just mention her name that we agree, and then you can discuss
Right.
the report, choose to do it that way.
It's a duty of the treasurer and it's statutory requirement to have a deputy treasurer, being as our position is not full-time. And so at this time, I've appointed Sue Hennessy, who replaced Annette Wurtsmith as the deputy treasurer. Sue is going to take on the responsibility at least through the balance of my term, and I'm sure through the balance of the new treasurer's term. And it's important because if anything were to happen to me or to an individual who is a treasurer, this individual would step in and act as treasurer without a vote on the board. So I want to welcome Sue, thank her. This comes with no additional finances or money, which I disagree with wholeheartedly. I think they should be paid for what they get. But Sue will step in, and she's been doing the job right along. I mean, it's not like she's adding anything to her position.
So there's no vote necessary because the appointment is strictly the authority of the treasurer. We can't confirm or deny, but I think board, can I say for everybody on the board, I'll say welcome aboard, Sue.
Yeah.
Certainly. If I might say, Mr. Supervisor, anybody that's been around the township as far as the board, you realize you've met Sue, and it seems like a very highly capable person, and yes, absolutely welcome aboard.
Okay, we're moving on to the final, action item number 7, approval of sale of tax-reverted property. And I guess I'm going to ask Treasurer Van Oss to introduce this.
All right.
Where is my, here it is.
Bear with me here a minute.
Or I can introduce it. Got it. All right. I'll just, it could be either you or I, but anyway, authorize the township attorney to prepare and enter a purchase agreement for the sale of Supervisors Grosse Sub number 5, private claim 550, Lieber 63, page 55, lot 66, except the east 500 feet thereof. Property number 7301201066001 in an amount of $125,000 or greater with the Baden party, subject to the following. Agreement shall address the state of Michigan legal requirements for the sale of tax-reverted property. All reasonable applicable fees shall be paid by the purchaser, and the agreement shall address the appropriate hold harmless requirements protecting the township. And furthermore, the township attorney and the township manager are authorized to close on the sale subject to terms and conditions as outlined in this motion.
Support.
Okay, so moved by Supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budney. The board has studied this a number of times, and this is the parcel behind the mansion on, and I call it a mansion because it's just the biggest house on the island. I think it is. If not the biggest, it's close. House on Grosse, the new construction on East River Road. This is the parcel behind it. The stretch it will give the property owner property from East River to Park Lane. The township received that western parcel on a DNR tax reversion. And at this point, I will let the manager pick up the details on this, because he's been following this for some time and made the initial contact and starting to make this happen. Mr. Ream.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The property was received from the state of Michigan in 1994 as a tax-reverted property. The state of Michigan requirements when they transfer a parcel to us, if we deem it acceptable or necessary or for any reason to sell it, the property needs to be, the value and what's been collected has to be split among the taxing agencies. So after our reasonable costs. So based on a sale we did several years back, I estimated our costs with attorney fees and administration time at around $3,000. So that $125,000 sale price doesn't come all to the township. It's based on the tax rate, and the schools would get over $58,000. The township would get over $29,000, and Wayne County would get $33,000. So what this does is it puts the property back on the tax rolls, and the idea behind this tax reverted property, when the state turns the property over to us and we put it back on the rolls, it's not that it's there for us to make a profit. It's there to, the proceeds need to go to those taxing agencies because it had sat idle for so long. So this is very similar to the one we did in Grosse Manor Sub a few years back. It's near identical. It's obviously just a different piece of property. When we go through the closing, we do a title search. It's just a regular real estate transaction. The property purchaser is in desire of a warranty deed. So again, the title company would be involved. Based on all those normal steps that you go through, we would then have a closing. This property was, we were approached by the adjacent property owner, and that was, I actually believe that was in January or February of this year, before the COVID shutdown. So we had a study session July 7th and September 22nd. And we're here asking for your approval of this action tonight.
Hey, any questions, comments from the board on this real estate transaction? I know there was a lot of interest in the community when we were discussing this 3rd Street orphan properties, and some consternation. This is a request from an adjacent landowner. The other adjacent landowner was notified, expressed no interest. It's an opportunity for us to recapture some lost value from the past, get it on the table, and get the schools, the county, and the township just in better financial shape, and have some private individual maintaining that property, not us. Other comments from Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Generally, I'm not in favor of selling township-owned property, especially if it's in a natural state or it is, it contributes to the open space properties it's adjacent to or contiguous with. Looking at the map here, we can see that on 2 sides of the property, 2 sides are already continuous with the person who has asked to purchase the property. And the third side is the street, and the 4th side is also privately owned by another individual who seems to own from East River to Park Lane. Mm-hmm. So as a freestanding little parcel there, it really is not contiguous in any sort of way with open space. But I wanted to ask the question because I didn't see it in the text that we reverted. Is there currently, or can there be, or is there proposed a conservation easement on that parcel? Or is this parcel then open to development? For instance, the person asking to purchase this property, can they turn around and sell it again to somebody else? Or does it become combined with the parcels that they currently own? Just some questions that I have.
I didn't see, I mean, the purchaser made a comment that he wanted to landscape it and keep it, similar to his adjacent neighbor. I think if I'm wording that properly. His adjacent neighbors made no intent to develop, but once it's in private hands, it is a separate parcel. I don't think we intend to combine it with his existing. We can with his existing parcel, but what he does, I mean, it becomes private property.
Yeah.
Mr.
Okay.
Supervisor.
Sorry, Dale.
Yeah, the intent is to keep it natural, as natural as possible, and do some landscaping. But you're absolutely correct. It's a separate parcel. They are not. I don't believe the property owners are interested in combining it, and because it is standalone, and they could sell it into the future. That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
And then my second half is, again, as you heard Ms. York ask earlier in the meeting, Dale, if you just outline that we did, what process we followed, and that this is a legal a process that the board is able to follow when it comes to not open space owned, millage purchase properties, but township owned properties that the township owns either through tax reverted status or donation.
Yeah, and that's a good point. This is not open space. It's not deed restricted. It wasn't a purchase the township made for that purpose. It was property that people lost to back taxes, and it followed the process, which has changed several times since. Again, in early 90s, and the state gave it to us. So they gave it to us for public purposes. And up until the tax reverted sale we did a few years ago, it was my belief that we were not able to transfer these properties until I spoke to the state of Michigan. And they said, oh, absolutely. If you as an agency believe that you'd like to sell it and it's for a good use, as long as you distribute the proceeds properly, which tells me, again, it's the money that they want to make sure is distributed, and that no taxing agency is benefiting improperly from this.
All right. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board? Again, as I mentioned earlier, the township has hundreds and hundreds of parcels. Some are deed restricted, some are not. We acquired them through all sorts of different means. But, obviously the ones that are open space or contiguous to open space or that have some public value have value, but a lot of them are just sitting fallow. They cost us money and they generate nothing. And we rely on property tax to run this township. So to exclude opportunities to generate more revenue from somebody who's willing to pay for it, I think is just a misfeasance. But the future sales will be the next board's decisions, unless something comes up real quick. And we don't do anything real quick, so nobody has to worry about that. Okay, with that.
Well, and Mr. Supervisor, I would just add to say that in those terms, this is really something that, we can't tell the future board what to do, but I would say this is something that needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. What you do for one property, for instance, this is quite a bit of important money coming back to the schools and the township and the county. Other properties may not have that same benefit. Mm-hmm. So again, I think it's important that each of these parcels as they come up be handled on a case-by-case basis.
And that's what we've done so far. That's probably a good means going forward. Other questions, comments? None offered. Let's see. To authorize the township attorney to prepare and enter a purchase agreement for the sale of Supervisor's Grosse sub number 5, private claim 550, Lieber 63, page 55, lot 66, except the east 500 feet thereof, property number 730120100660001, in an amount of $125,000 or greater with the Baydoun party, subject to the following. Agreement shall address state of Michigan legal requirements for the sale of tax-reverted property. All reasonable applicable fees shall be paid by the purchaser, and the agreement shall address the appropriate hold harmless requirements protecting the township. And furthermore, the township attorney and the township manager are authorized to close on the sale, subject to the terms and conditions outlined in this motion. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Offered. That motion carries. And
Opposed.
Oh, there was
I'm
an
sorry.
opposed.
Who's opposed?
I am.
Okay, we have one opposed and 6 ayes. Any other comments? Did I get the vote right? Hearing none, that motion carries. And that concludes tonight's agenda items. Step to the clerk's report. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Well, we're going to start out first under the heading of you can't always believe what you see, hear, or find out through social media. There are some news stories going around about Pennsylvania and secrecy sleeves in voting. And I just want to reassure everybody, and we've conferred at our office, that any ballots that are not, any absent voter ballots, mail-in ballots that arrive where the ballot is not tucked into the secrecy sleeve will still be counted. That really is something that protects the secrecy of the vote, but if the voter does not put it into the envelope, that doesn't mean we're going to discount that vote. So by Michigan election law, those ballots will be counted. But that prompted me to ask our team to put together some facts, frequently asked questions, and I think they're asked more frequently than they like, so they gave them to me to read to you so that we can kind of get the message out there to everybody. So for instance, voters are asking, if I vote straight party and fill in the ovals for candidates, will that invalidate my ballot? No, it will not. You can vote straight party and still pick and choose other candidates throughout the ballot. If I vote straight party, can I still vote for the candidates in other parties or write-in candidates? And the answer is yes. Your individual choices will take precedence over your straight party vote where there is no other vote placed, and this is what we call a split ticket. Those votes will count. This is not like the primary where you can only vote for candidates in one party. This is the general election where you can vote for candidates in all the parties. Do I have to sign my ballot just like my name is listed on the ballot? No. You signed your name exactly as you signed your driver's license, and not how it's printed, but how you signed it. And yes, we will contact you if we see that your signature may have changed over time. This sometimes happens with older voters whose signature changes with age. We will contact the voters. They may have signed their voter registration card or their license years before, and we will then call them and ask them to come in, or we come to them to verify their signature. And to tell you that we don't do this arbitrarily, my own son, his signature has changed, and today he got an email from our team that said, hey, Kiernan, your signature doesn't match what's on file. He needs to come down and verify his signature, verify his identity. And then we've got some other updates. Our office has sent out to date 4,430 absent voter ballots so far, and we've already received back more than 400. Again, we're encouraging residents who live on the island, live in the community, who have access to their college kids, hand deliver your ballots. Don't take a chance on the mail. We have a drop-off box in front of our building. Our certified election staff clears that box usually more than once a day. And that way you can be guaranteed that your ballot will arrive in plenty of time before the election. And then the final note on like election business is that write-in candidates have until October 23rd at 4 p.m. to submit their declaration of intent to run. Brian, do you have any other election business that you would like to bring up?
No, I think you covered everything for right now.
Okay. Then the other thing I just wanted to end on is that at our last township meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the voter challenge involving a candidate and a voter on Grosse. Our clerk's office has worked with our attorney. We have put out an official factual statement. You can find it on grosse.com by going to the government page and looking for the clerk's page. You'll find it there. I won't read it again, but if you would like a copy, you can also contact our office. It also includes links to the state law and state election law on which these decisions were based. They were based on nothing other than Michigan state election law. And then finally, if you want more updates from the clerk's office, we have an official clerk's Instagram account. It is at Grosse Eel Clerk on Instagram, and the office will be posting information about ballots, how to return your ballots, how to sign your ballots, voter education. And obviously, if you have any questions about the process, give our office a call, give me a call, and we are more than happy to answer your questions. And that's it for the clerk's report today.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Treasurer.
You'll have to unmute, Ted. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Thanks, Brian. It was probably better the other way. The Treasurer's Office will continue to accept payments with a 1% penalty until Wednesday, September 30th. After that date, an additional 1% penalty will be added each calendar month. Please note that Grosse Eel branch of the Public Services Credit Union cannot accept late tax payments. Before making late payments, property owners should check with GrosseEel.com to attain the actual late penalty amount, or they can call the office and check with Sue. Property owners that have an escrow account can also check online to ensure that their 2020 summer tax payment was made by the mortgage company. We especially encourage this for those that have purchased or refinanced their home recently. As of September 28, 2020, we've collected 98% of the 2020 summer tax roll. A distribution of the school and county have been made in a timely fashion. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Move on to trustee liaison reports. Let's see, I've got Mr. Bletcher first on the list. Carl. All right, let's see who, okay.
Supervisor, I have the pleasure of sitting on 3 commissions. I'm going to start with the Grosse Eel Police Commission. I want everybody to know that one of our commissioners, Jerry Mattioli, is retiring. Well-deserved after a very long career in law enforcement. He is going to be leaving the commission for a hopefully long and prosperous and happy retirement. That means that with the vacancy that there is an opportunity for citizens to apply. I urge all citizens to make an application that are interested to make an application to the, receive an application from the clerk's office or from Margie Gate. Please dial 676-4422 and ask for either the clerk's office or for Ms. Gape, and she can email an application to you. We would like to have the applications in by the end of business this Friday so that we can then start scheduling meetings, conferences, interviews with those that are interested. Presently, we have 3 people that have submitted applications. A fourth one is supposed to be on the way, and hoping that we can have a successful candidate from all of that. But again, everybody is encouraged that's interested to apply. We meet once a month, typically for an hour to maybe an hour and a half on the second Tuesday of the month, 7 o'clock at Public Safety Building. It is a very worthwhile use of your time. You get to be very involved with one of the most important aspects of township government, and that is public safety. The second commission I sit on is Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission. You'll note that most of our bike paths have been recently resurfaced or had crack filling and sealing done. So that project is near completion and very well done, and it's going to preserve those paths for years to come. The third commission I sit on is Greenways Open Space, and we have received proposals for trail upgrades for both the Ferry Road, Gage Road connector, as well as Meridian Woods. We're going to be reviewing those at our next meeting, and that'll be next week. So the full commission will have an opportunity to appreciate what we're going to be able to do with trails, what it will cost, and how to move forward. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Malvesto.
I had a short conversation with Chief Beaudry today, Fire Chief Beaudry today, and unfortunately, it makes it very difficult with the Zoom meeting. But they have a 90-day demo on a piece of equipment. They've been receiving a lot of calls lately that requires resuscitation, and there's a new piece of equipment out on the market, and again, they've been given it as a 90-day trial that the first responder could literally strap this this unit on the chest of a patient and start immediate resuscitation. He could be transported immediately to the hospital, and because the current hospitals, both Riverside and Wyandotte, are using the same piece of equipment, it would be a seamless transition. And what this piece of equipment does, it's like a large suction cup that fits on the chest, and it immediately starts the resuscitation process and continually beats pumps the chest to get the heart back into a rhythm. Again, it's hard to describe it, and it's unfortunate with the Zoom. It would be very difficult to demonstrate it, but it's something that the fire department is trying out. And if they find it in their budget and it's successful, they may be able to move forward and purchase it. But another service that they'd be providing to our residents. Currently to date, they have 420 EMS calls and 74 fire calls. Again, a busy bunch of guys. So also, another thing that Russ shared with me was that they had just received about $15,000 in grant money. So our fire department's doing relatively well, and I'll let it go at that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Let's see, moving on, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Farrell, you want to lead off? Because he's going to defer to you anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Just apologies to the board with the agenda item. I just wanted to touch base on what happened with Smokies and so forth. I know it's been tabled, but I do want to let the township board know that the CRC has voted on the agenda item for tonight. I know it's been tabled, and I was excused from tonight's meeting, but in lieu of the circumstances, I thought I would jump on, being caught off guard a little bit, but the CRC voted unanimously to go out for RFP for the restaurant. I just wanted to make that well known to the township board this evening. Moving on to the recreation report, the next CRC meeting is October 22nd at 6 p.m. And we will be in the boardroom as of October 9th. We are able to meet in person. So that is again, October 22nd at 6 p.m. And we also, at the CRC meeting on Thursday, we had a great discussion about the 5-year recreational plan, which is set to expire in December with extensions through February. Brian Borden joined us. We had a great conversation with Brian and how we're going to move forward. We are looking to set the first date for October 14th, which is a Wednesday at 6 p.m. at the farm. We're just going to start with an informational meeting to the community. Residents are able, just come speak to us. The commission will be there. I will be there, just to set the next 5 years what the residents would like to see with community recreation on the island. So that is set for October 14th at 6 p.m. And also during our meeting, we talked about a lot of the events that are coming to the Community Fall Festival is this Saturday, October 3rd from 1 to 4 p.m. Just encouraged to register. Obviously with COVID and restrictions, face masks, those types of things, it helps us plan our event a lot better if we know the number of people that are coming. We don't want to deny access to an event if we exceed 150 people, which in the past, the Fall Festival has done that. It's just best to register online for the safety of all of our residents. Also, the Profile magazine is coming out in the next week or so. We have put together a beautiful magazine for our residents involving all the departments with the township. So we are fine tuning that in the next 24 hours, and it should be hitting the homes probably within a week. And also senior shopping. A lot of the seniors I know do not have access to social media. So we stress at our CRC meetings and also township board meetings, if any senior on the island needs assistance with shopping, groceries, picking up prescriptions, any doctor's appointments, those types of things, please call 734-216-4905. That is the other cell phone that I carry for the township. I am the person that does all the grocery shopping, getting the senior transportation, all of those types of things. So any senior that needs anything, please contact that number. I know Chad was planning to join the meeting. I'm not sure if he is on yet, but Paint the Town Red, we are working together with the DDA on October 10th. There is a full fun list of activities for Paint the Town Red. Follow them on Facebook. Also follow Grosse Recreation on Facebook. That is the most current information we can provide to the residents until the Profile magazine comes out. So, and that's all I have for tonight.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Sure.
Let's see, Mr. Bodney.
Let me get off of mute there. I'll be very, very brief. No ZBA tomorrow. And our next DPS meeting will be the second Tuesday of October, which I believe is October 13th. And hopefully it'll be in the boardroom. And that's all I have.
You're not as busy as usual. This is remarkably short. Thanks, Jim. Okay, with this, move on to Township Attorney's report.
Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, as many of you probably already know, the governor came out with new executive orders Friday afternoon. Some of those executive orders deal with meetings and gatherings of individuals not of the same household. The requirement of the limitation of 10 individuals indoors is now gone away. There are a substantial number of other restrictions. I've already discussed those with the township manager today to start, and we're going to work on that here very quickly to make a determination, or at least help the township make a decision about the next set of meetings and whether or not we're going to have them on Zoom or if we need to have them if we want to move forward with regular meetings. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Asserti. Mr. Ram?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Everyone who remembers this name raise their hand. Wally Posiask.
Yay!
Former trustee. Wally is helping us do our safety training for all our maintenance staff. He helped do it 3 times prior to this, and he's helping us do this year. So we are up to date in compliance with all of my OSHA training. So he has done it for us. several times for free. This time it's going to be a highly discounted rate, of course. But I just wanted everyone wanted to say thank you to Wally for all of his help, and let the board know that that training should probably be completed by the end of October. And then our township board schedule is tentatively October 12th and 26th, pending agenda items. And we will try to determine what the governor's new order means, whether we'll have an in-person meeting. They're limiting to 20 people. Is that correct? 20 inside. I think we can have in our township boardroom. But what do we do if there's more people show up? Well, between the board and management staff, we're already over 15. So that doesn't leave much for public comment, public input. So we got to figure out how we're going to handle that. But stay tuned and we'll know more shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ream. Brings it out to me, the supervisor's report. I'm going to hand it over at this time to our new DDA director, Trish. And we had a long meeting, last Thursday, outside, socially distanced. Actually, it was very productive. But Trish, brief us, let the residents know what's going on in the DDA.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
You're loud and clear on my end.
Okay, great. So since taking over the DDA director role, I've been kind of working on four main things. First of all, just catching up from not having a director in place from March to August. So that's we're making progress. Figuring out if we're getting into heavy event scheduling time, and figuring out what events we can do and how we can do them safely with COVID. We have a couple of vacancies on the DDA board, so I've been working on recruiting new board members, and it's a little different with the DDA in that the majority of the board has to have a business interest on Macomb Street. So it can't just be anybody who's interested. They have to be a business owner or have a sound business interest. And then I've been working with the consultants that the board appointed or hired and getting up to speed on that. So just to give you a few updates, we are, as Kim mentioned, partnering with the rec department and doing Paint the Town Red. It's October 10th from 9 to 7. We're just doing one day since the school is not really having homecoming weekend, but we still wanted to have a little bit of a community celebration. We are also partnering with the Kiwanis, who will be doing a scavenger hunt. So people can sign up, and I encourage them to sign up to learn more about our island. And they've got lots of great prizes. The VFW is having a car show. No advance registration, just $5 on the day of the event to park. And there's, again, lots of great prizes there. We have Knights of Columbus doing a pancake breakfast in Lions Park. We'll have some vendors at Macomb Marketplace. Anybody can visit our website, paintthetownredgi.com, paintthetownredgi.com to register as a vendor or find out latest and greatest information. And then we just plan to provide a lot of entertainment up and down Macomb Street. We will have local talent, like everyone loves the UPS man, Ron Martinez. I hope I said his name right. But he'll be performing outside some of the businesses like the new Island Goods and Hawthorne and Vine. We'll have other, Barry will be playing the guitar at the VFW and having a DJ. And then we're going to end the evening with Howlin' Mercy in Lions Park, putting on a show from 5 to 7. And also in the afternoon, we have the Open Book Theater doing a driveway theater performance. All outdoors, all meant to be safe and get people outdoors and walking along and seeing what Macomb Street has to offer. We will next month on the board be bringing you a new board member to vote on. Kelly Trustees of Pop-Up Platter. We've interviewed her and our board voted, so we'll be bringing that to the board to have on the agenda next month to approve her as a new DDA member. And then last, I've been working very closely, Ron, Moran, and the DDA board, hearing from our consulting groups who have put together the final draft plans. Our consultant SMM has given us the Macomb master plan and action steps. And this will be how we can visually improve Macomb Street, add art, add interest. And then our other consultants, Wade, Trim, and Bonner Advisors, They were at the last DDA meeting, the one, as Brian said, we had outdoors in the community gardens, or not the community gardens, the memorial gardens out back. And they were talking to us how we can attract new businesses, have a business recruitment strategy. So we're looking at ways to roll this out to the board and the public, perhaps a town hall meeting. So there'll be more coming on those in the near future. So that's what I've been working on. Lots going on.
Thanks, Trish. You have been busy, and we're making progress.
I feel we are, yes.
Despite all the external things that we have no control over. And I'll just roll in. I've got just a couple things. First of all, let's hope for good weather for Paint the Town Red, because again, it's all based on outdoor activities, and a nice fall day would be absolutely wonderful. Same thing with the Fall Fest. This is a great time of year. If we can, everything we can do outside, it just opens things up. One of my concerns is we're planning all our futures around these incessant, and that's just my term, because I can't think of a more accurate one, executive orders. We're up to 180. I think we had 186 was the most recent. And some are rescinding other ones, but these are coming out of the stroke of a pen, and our plans are changing. I won't say hourly, but daily. And I referenced this in my last article, and I was immediately chastised as I was attacking the governor. I'm not attacking the governor. I'm questioning the system. And it was never, I don't know. The legislature is my biggest disappointment that they haven't chimed in and put together a veto-proof bill to reclaim their ability to legislate. And that just leaves us, waiting hourly to see what's coming out, what we can and can't do. But we'll see. There's a Supreme Court, Michigan Supreme Court is hearing a case to see which emergency management statute, the 1945 statute or the 1976 statute, is going to be the supreme statute in this case. Or there's also a signature drive to get the legislature to repeal the 1945 statute, which would bring things back to the 1976 statute, which specifically mentions epidemics. And that puts the responsibility, again, on the legislature to either give the governor authority or do their jobs and legislate themselves. We'll see how it works out. My only other comments are tonight we approved in the consent agenda Halloween, October 31st from 6 to 8. As always, safety, safety, safety. I'm not worried about COVID as much as I'm worried about kids getting hit by cars and somebody dropping something questionable in a kid's Halloween bag. So if you have any questions about what your children bring home, check it all first. If anything is questionable, contact dispatch, bring it by the police department. They'll look after it. They'll make sure that you're safe. They're the experts on this. But hopefully we have a nice weather, a nice Halloween evening. It's great fun for the kids. And that'll conclude my report. I'm sure we're going to have plenty of comments tonight. So with that, we have no discussion items. Public comment, 3 minutes, any topic. Mr. Friel, let's get back to the raise your hand, and who's first?
Yeah, basically, if you'd like to comment, if you want to just put your picture on and give me a wave so I know you want to, we can go from there.
No, great. This is easy.
Okay, Mike Jurecki would like to. I see that.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be first this time, but that's okay. Just got a couple questions, just for my own clarification. And I'll direct this one to Mr. Assorti. The contract with Mr. Riem, is there still a equitable relief clause in that contract? Mr. Assorti, you're on mute.
Mr. Supervisor, do you want me to respond to the questions?
This is supposed to be public comment, not question and answer. I mean, you can see a copy of the agreement. We published it.
Well, the one I saw had it. It was still in there. Okay. And then my follow-up on that, because I know Jim answered this question, and I don't really think he got a good answer. But it kind of reads, in fact, I'll just read the comment, that the obligations under this agreement are special, unique, and extraordinary, and that any breach of this agreement will cause irreparable, it will cause, not may cause, it will cause irreparable harm to the other party that may not be adequately compensated by money damages. So, in a nutshell, it could go way beyond damages to the township, the normal salary benefits that we provide Mr. Riem. If you don't want to answer, that's fine, because I've already had an attorney answer it. So,
what was your attorney's answer, that we can't provide injunctive relief?
Well, I'm just saying that was
Well,
the
you said
answer.
you had an attorney answer it. I'd be curious what it is.
Well, the answer was it can go beyond normal compensation in the contract.
Absolutely. Any contract that's breached typically calls for provisions for damages being provided.
A lot of times
that would also apply for the township's benefit if Mr. Ream violated the contract.
And do you think the likelihood of us suing Mr. Riem would be high on something like that? You don't need to answer that, because I already know the answer. Second question. Mr. Loftus, you mentioned that part of the reason why we're doing this contract was because someone threatened to want to fire Mr. Riem or whatever if, they came in power, one vote on a board or whatever. Probably not a good reason, but I understand. I mean, lots of things are said in political campaigns. But my question was, maybe Mr. Assorti can answer this, but maybe he can't. I don't know. We're giving him a contract because he's providing services above and beyond what he normally does. Did you not say that?
I did say that.
Okay, thank you. And having to do with a transition. And I would just ask, because I know there's a lot of managers on the board and a lot more in the audience, how many of those managers have been paid extra money or given contracts to help with transitions? To me, in my 30 years of management, that was always a very big part of my job, is to provide a transition, train people to replace me, or go out and hire them when somebody gave me 2 days notice. I know, Mr. Loftus, you were a manager or a high-ranking military person. Did they provide you extra compensation or extra consideration when some of your officers left and you had to bring a new one in, or when you left yourself?
Again, this is public comment. This isn't question and answer. The answer is no, but this isn't question and answer.
That's the right answer. No further comments. Thanks, guys. Jim, hopefully that Mr. Budney gives you a little bit more context around what's in that contract.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jurecki. Next, Mr. Friel, who's?
Mr. Assorti, you have your hand up.
I did. Brian, I wanted to thank you and everybody at the township that's helping out get the football games out. The first one was very good, and the second one against Huron was superb, although the outcome of the game wasn't. But I want to thank the township for helping out the football team. This is a tough time for the kids right now, and to be able to get the football games on video so that grandparents and aunts and uncles and other family members who might not otherwise be able to attend the game can at least watch. It's really a great thing. So thank you.
Okay, that thank you is directed at Brian Friel, not this.
Yes, sorry.
I second that. Brian Friel taking the initiative and making that happen. So thanks from all of us. And Brian Friel, who's next?
All right, Craig Pilkington.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Just fine.
This also relates to the transition agreement. The verbiage, especially relative to the equitable relief and injunctive relief, seems to be, conventional wording for a breach of contract. This seems to be very subjective. I don't see any specifics that trigger breach. So on behalf of the township manager, it would leave it to his interpretation as to what constitutes breach. And I don't see anything that really defends or constrains such a complaint and protects the township. So what limits are there, native to this agreement that would tangibly define what constitutes a breach of contract?
Again, this is not question and answer. This is
okay.
Comment. I assume your comment is you're not confident that that this contract.
I will go ahead and make the remark, and I think it's fair. And I am posing that question, I suppose, for everyone's consideration. But I would affirm, I think, what Mr. Malvesto had said earlier, that I would have liked to have seen a study session for the board, possibly for the incoming board, to be able to pose questions of a lawyer, somebody who truly has that kind of background, and maybe to be able to answer questions and concerns that they have here. I don't know that the board has been able to pose those questions to one another or to a qualified expert where this agreement is concerned. That's it, and that's the end of my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Pilkington.
Okay, Judy Ann. Make sure you unmute.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to report on the Grosse Citizens for Justice and Change event yesterday, a Sunday at 3 o'clock at the Commons. It was well attended. It was a very thoughtful, very inspiring event. We had a prayer, and we had a pastor from a local church speak, as well as our Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, Representative Darren Camilleri, and State Senator Stephanie Chang also spoke, in addition to a lifelong Grosse resident, Megan Antosh, on what we can all do personally and as a society to try to address the persistent issue of racism and how we can change it. So it was very inspiring to have a nice attendance, and it was a beautiful day. It was peaceful. Contrary to Facebook predictions, there was no problems, and we were all happy to see that. So I just wanted to report on that, and let everybody know that the Grosse Democratic Club is very active. We're very busy at this time of year. If anybody wants to look us up on the new Grosse Democratic Club on Facebook, we are there. We have lots of things for people to do. We're very busy. So, and I wanted to thank Clerk O'Connor for attending the event yesterday at the Commons. It was nice to see local township elected officials, one official there. It was very nice to have your presence and your support. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Mega. Brian, who's next?
I don't have any other hands up at this point in time.
Well, in that case,
Debbie York. I'm sorry, Debbie York.
I'm sorry, Debbie York. Mrs. York. Oh, she's doing it the right way.
Thank you. Thank you. It took me a minute. Just quickly, I wanted to thank you for the information tonight. I specifically want to thank Mr. Ream for some additional information about how the township proceeds through policy and procedure on the sale of property. However, I do want to make one other kind of slight comment. The conversation about the contract for Mr. Ream. While I'm very supportive of Mr. Ream, I do come from a little bit of a labor contract background. I am not an attorney. I really appreciate the conversation about that. And I would like to say that tonight, I have decided that I will not vote for Mr. Trump. I will not vote for Mr. Biden, but I'm going to write in Mr. Malvesto tonight. Hope that's okay. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mrs. York. Congratulations, Tom. You just became a candidate, but
No,
your resume expanded.
if I'm running for anything, I'm running north.
Okay. It's that time of year. Any other hands up? Brian?
That's all I've got.
Mr. Budney?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Budney, seconded by
Clerk O'Connor?
Clerk O'Connor. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, there, call the aye. Opposed? None off. Those in favor of adjourning the meeting, we already did. The meeting stands adjourned at 9:41. Not bad. Thanks, everyone, for participating.
Thank you.
Those who watched at home and contributed. Thanks. See you in October. Meeting's
Good
adjourned.
night.